everyone, welcome back to the shop. Cold, frigid northern Utah day today, Saturday. I mentioned in my previous video I had to work the rest of this week, and I got off early yesterday because of another snowstorm that came through, but I finished up that knife that you just saw in a previous video that I uploaded today, earlier. So today we are going to finish our Damascus billet here. We still need to draw it out maybe a couple more inches, I think, to get this down to a reasonable size to twist. So we're going to get this drawn on out here a ways and try to smallen this up here enough that we can get a good twist on it in our vise. And then we're going to hammer out a knife out of this thing. So hope you can stick around for that. It's great to have you with me in the shop today, even as cold as it is. We're going to have some fun no matter what. So stick around. Got the forge warming up, heating up our anvil surface, and we're getting ready to get to work. So you might be wondering, why don't I take this over the edge of our anvil and draw it out that way? If it were a solid billet of just straight, 5160 or something, I would do that. But we've got 12 layers of Damascus here, and I don't want to put that big of indents in our material, so it'll mess up the pattern. So I want to keep it fairly flat. It's harder to draw it out that way, but in the end our pattern will look a lot better. I can feel our handle moving here. We're just about to lose our handle again. I better go give that a quick weld with the MIG real quick before it just comes off. Well, alright guys, I hope that holds because I just ran out of welding wire. Well, we're getting to the point where we're going to get too long to get a good heat on the whole thing. So I think we're going to go ahead, get a good heat on it, and see if we can get a twist on this thing. Well, it looks like we've got a pretty decent twist on that. Dang. That's a big piece of steel to twist right there. I think we're going to heat it up, and I don't know. I was thinking about twisting it again. But we're already going to have to worry about fluxing it and getting cold shuts in it and stuff. Yeah, I think we'll heat it up one more time and twist it once more. Pretty hot, but we got 2 more twists out of it. Two more full twists. I think that's where we're going to leave it. I don't know, this top part up here, I think we're going to heat this up real good and give it another twist to kind of catch it up with the rest of this. We may do that up here and down here. Well, I think that's got that bottom part nicely twisted. Now we'll come back and we'll heat this upper part, get it tightened up a little bit. Right, see if we can't get this top twisted up a little bit tighter here. Another half a twist. I think we're going to call it good. pattern obviously gets tighter down here. I only heated up here this time, but for whatever reason, it wants to keep twisting down in here instead of up here, and I'm not going to push my luck. I think we're going to stop with that. Kind of want to take our time here, I think. We don't want to get too crazy. Make sure that we don't end up with any cold shuts or inclusions or any of those bad words. Taking our time. She's squaring up. Again. We want to take it slow and make sure that all these, we don't get any inclusions or cold shuts or anything in here. Because virtually we're having to forge weld all of those twists back into the billet. Woohoo! Gonna lose our handle again, and I don't have any welding wire. Well, looks like it's coming together nicely. Been bathing it in flux every heat. As if I didn't already have enough flux in the bottom of my forge. I think we're pretty safe. Worrying about any cold shuts or anything like that. She's coming right along. Look at the distance we have now. When we started on this today, we only had about 2 inches hanging off, and our billet was a lot bigger, square, and we're getting her down there. Well, I'm going to let this cool off a minute, take a good close look at it, and make sure that it's all coming together nicely. It's hard to see when it's at that bright orange yellow heat like that, you know. We'll kind of let her cool off here for a second. And it seems to be cooling off pretty evenly. It doesn't look too bad. We've got some pretty deep twists in these ends here. I think we're going to still have to pay pretty close attention to, but she's getting there. And I don't know, but it looks like it's going to be an awfully big knife. If I cut it in half, it won't be a big enough knife. We'll just play it by ear and see where it goes. Okay guys, well, I went ahead and cooled this off, and I decided to go ahead and grind those twist valleys, you know, those gouges out. I'm telling you, if you've ever drawn out a Damascus billet, if you've ever made a Damascus billet, you know how much work goes into it, and rather than try to hammer those in and risk ending up with cold shuts or whatever that you find later on, you know, when you're grinding your final knife, you know how much work goes into one of these if you've ever done one, and I'm not gonna lose my knife, you know, get the knife all hammered out, and then find out when I get on the grinder and start grinding in my bevels and that I've got cold shuts or inclusions or something in there. So we went ahead and ground these corners off where all those, you know, rough marks were. I got to looking at it after it cooled off, and some of those just looked pretty bad. Like even if I tried to smooth them out with the hammer, that they may go ahead and you know, and end up in cold shuts or something. So I would rather catch something like that early and grind it and clean it up and know. See, now we know we have a good solid billet here to work with, and we can go ahead and forge our blade out of this, knowing that we're not going to have any cracks or splits. And I went ahead, after I cleaned it up with the angle grinder, I went ahead and I hit it with just lightly with some sandpaper. I don't even know, I think it was 220 grit, something like that. And then I threw it in the etch for just a second to see. And I know probably in the video it looked like I was getting a little crazy with my twists. But if you can see that twisted pattern in there of the 1080 and 15N20 steel we used, it's a nice tight twist. We've got a good solid billet here, and I think maybe by grinding some of that off, that we have it down to a little bit more workable size now, where we can make a nice blade out of it, and it's not going to overwhelm my small forge. But I'm really happy with the twist pattern in this. I think it came out great. Sorry about that, the camera died again. I like this new camera, but it sure goes through the batteries awfully fast. Anyway, like I say, I'm glad I ground it off, because now we know we've got a good solid billet here to work with. We're still going to have a pretty big knife, so I'm not, you know what I mean, it's just, you're better if you find something that could be a problem, take care of it now and get it over with, and that way it doesn't come back to bite you later on. So I kind of thought that those big deep gaps where the big twist was here at both ends were going to pose a problem in, you know, on future forging. So once I cooled it off and I saw, like I say, when your metal is almost yellow hot, it's hard to see those kinds of things. You kind of have to let it cool off and take a closer look. And I'm glad I did. We cleaned it up. Now we've got a nice solid billet. We have a beautiful twist. This is a very tight twist pattern. Some of you may have thought while I was twisting that I was getting a little carried away, and maybe I did. I maybe shouldn't have twisted it quite so many times, because it was quite a big billet, and it was hard to twist, but it all worked out great, and I'm glad we got it where we did, and I think we're going to end that one here for today. It's been a pretty long day. So we're going to go ahead and call that part one of our twisted Damascus knife build, and we'll pick up tomorrow and go ahead and draw out our blade, and I think we're still going to end up with a fairly good sized knife out of this thing. I don't want it to get too big, because my forge, I only have a one burner forge, and that last knife we made was almost too much for my forge to handle. So I think this one's going to come out great. It'll be in my same sort of signature style clip point. I make a heavy, hefty knife. I don't like a really skinny blade on a knife. I mean, I guess if you're making a skinner or something, that's great, because you're only skinning a deer or an elk or whatever. But I like a knife that you can chop down a tree with, or, you know, cut up your steak when you're camping. I mean, I like a good heavy blade, something that you could pry on if you need to, something you can take and baton it through firewood or whatever you need. You know, I like a good all-around heavy knife that a person could use. I mean, you could take the last knife I made, you could gut a deer or an elk with that and turn around and, you know, you could use it to split firewood, you could use it to make tent stakes, you could use it to cut your steak up around the campfire at dinner time if you were out camping. So I like a good all-around, really good usable knife, and I like them to be heavy and with a little meat to them. So hopefully this one here is going to turn out the same way, only with that beautiful twisted Damascus pattern. And so join me on the next one, and we'll see how this blade's going to come out. So thanks for watching. I really appreciate y'all being here. If you haven't yet, think about subscribing, because we do a lot of interesting stuff here like this. I don't know that I've seen anyone undertake, and I've watched a lot of YouTube videos about Damascus blades and what have you, and I don't believe I've seen anyone undertake that large of a billet with a hammer and an anvil before. I've seen people make some crazy awesome sized billets with power hammers and power presses, but I don't believe I've seen anybody in one shot make that large of a billet of Damascus steel. So, and we had 12 layers of 1080 and 15N20, so huge billet. Of course you lose a lot because there's a lot of welding and a lot of flux and a lot of scale comes off of that stuff. So we've probably lost I don't know, from the start of the size of our billet. When you figure our billet was 1.5 by 1.5 by 6 inches. This is probably stretched out to 8 inches, and it's only about 1 inch by 1 inch now. So we've probably lost a good 30% of our, well, and we ground it, you know, we ground off those bad edges and that, so we wouldn't end up with cold shuts or anything, but it's a huge undertaking in a small one burner forge like mine to forge weld a 6 inch, 1.5 by 1.5 12 layer billet. That's a pretty big undertaking. So proud of our work and what we've got accomplished here so far, and tomorrow we'll pick up here and we'll build us a blade. So thanks for watching. Get out to your shop, build something, tear something up, break something. You know, I break things, I mess things up, I screw up all the time. I just don't let you guys see most of it on on camera. Actually, if I am in the middle of a project, you've seen me in the middle of a project say, well, I think this is a wash, like the Chinese Bowie knife we worked on several videos ago. So if things don't work out, you'll see that as well as the things that do. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.